tasks. So each task on your project that you actually want to forecast, it needs to have a planning start and a planning end date. So if you drill into your task, you'll see right under the task properties, these first two fields are planning or planned start date and planned end date. Each task that you want to have a forecast for has to have these dates in here. So you go put in your dates on each one of your tasks. That's the very first thing you need to do. Once you have that in place, you want to make sure that you activate all your tasks and that you activate your project. To create your forecast, you use the inquiries button. So I'm just going to go up here and click on Project Budget Forecast. This takes me over to our forecast page. First thing you need to do is enter a revision number. It can be a name or a number. So I'm just going to call it Rev 01. And just so that you guys are all aware, there's a little bug on this. If you go more than 10 characters, you will get a not very descriptive error. So just make sure you don't make your revision name longer than 10 characters. It'll be fixed in the next release, but for right now, we've got that little bug in there. As soon as I tab out of the revision field, it pulls in all my budget lines. And you can use this type up here, which is just a filter. So if you said, I just want to see my revenue lines, or you can say I want to see all the lines, or I just want to see my expense lines, whichever the case. And these are all pulled in. You can see the planned start and end dates here. And then you just give your budget some kind of a description. I'm just going to call it the same as my rev number and save it. So the biggest point of forecasts is to let you break down these budgeted quantities and amounts by month, because right now it's just one big lump for the whole project. So we want to break it down. So to break down your forecast, you use this Generate Periods button. And what's happening here is the system is looking at those planned start and end dates that were pulled in from the task, and it's creating a financial period or periods to correspond to this. So in the first task, I only did 1 month, so you can see it popped in May. If I go down here a little bit, you can see for the second task, I put in 2 months because it's going from May to June. And if I scroll further down, it has 3 months because of my planned dates. So one thing you'll notice is all these lines that say Delta, and they're bright red numbers next to them. So this is telling me that the total budgeted amount doesn't equal the sum of the individual months. So we always need those to match. If the sum of these does not match the total, you're going to see this red delta. So the reason we have this is because we haven't distributed anything across these months. So to distribute that total amount, we're just going to come up to the top and click on Distribute. And you have some options here. You can pick like the different columns. You can say I want to distribute all the budget lines, or I could do, like, let me just click on one specific one. If I hit distribute while I have one highlighted, I can say just select the one budget line. And you can see it only distributed on this particular task. So now the delta for this one is gone, but you can see it remains on the other ones. And now for this specific line, we have everything matching. So the 48,000 is the equivalent of these 2 months. And you could come in here, you can change these, right? So lots of different things you can do here. And if you need to add in an additional period, you can just come up here and add periods. I could delete a whole month if I needed to. So it's pretty flexible. But let's look at what happens as actual costs start coming in. So I created a bill over here. Just gonna open this up. So I entered this bill, and I backdated it to April. So this got posted outside of my forecast range. I'm going to go ahead and release it. Let's go back to our forecast. I'm going to refresh my forecast. Actually, I'm going to save it first. And you'll see we again have that line for delta. And over here in the actual column, we have numbers in red. So this is just because the transactions have been entered outside of May or June. So it's telling me we have these that we need to resolve. And it's pretty easy to resolve them. All I need to do is click on Update Forecast Lines. And then it updates them into, you can see it created April, and now the red delta is gone. Last thing I want to touch on is this little button for Update Your Project Budget. This button lets you make changes over here in your budget. Let's say I'm going to change this to 34,000. Which again gives me a delta, so it's showing me I'm $10,000 off. But if I wanted to keep this and push it back to my project budget, I'm going to save this and just click on Update Project Budget. And you can see it pushed it backwards. It updated it here, and it pushed it back to my project. So if I go back on my project, I remember to save. So we moved from 48 to 58,000 on this particular task. All right, so one thing that I've already talked to our product management about is reporting and how we can use these forecasts for some analytics and just being able to see monthly totals and basic things like that. So we have that in the works. For right now, the only real reporting that I have to show you is we do have a pivot table, and it's called Budget Forecast Details. And in this case, we are, this is how we have it set up with our product ID. We're breaking it down by the financial period or by the month. These are all of our different columns, but you could definitely take out some of these columns as well as some of the rows. But just to give you an idea what this looks like. So it's a pretty complicated pivot. I narrowed it down a little bit, so it didn't have like so many periods to it. So personally, I don't think this shows really beautifully for a demo. So we will be having more reports coming soon.
So Nancy, one of the things that we're working on is reports, like you just mentioned, and I wanted to cue the audience here and say, if you guys have project budget forecast reports or dashboard samples from other products that you may have used or are selling, we'd be glad to take a look at those. If you could send those to Nancy or I, we can get them off to the product team with Angela and Joel and see what we can come up with for extended reporting options. But definitely need to add some more functionality here. I know, Christina, you're working on a report for that as well to provide Angela. But if anybody on this call has some examples, we'd be happy to take them. That'd be great.
And include me on that email, please, so I know that it's been sent and what has been sent. Thanks.
Perfect. Will do. So now I'd like to open up the floor to questions around the project budget forecast or additional questions you might have.
Hey, Nancy. Nancy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Will you go back to that project? I wanted to make sure that I understood. It could be from a lack of coffee, but I wanted to make sure that I understood. When you updated the budget, was the project set up so it did not require a change order? Is that what allowed you to update the budget?
Yes, I did take off the change order.
Okay.
That's something I already reported to development. I'm seeing some weird things with that.
So, because if you had change order workflow selected and you tried to update the budget, would it give you an error?
It's not an error, but you get a warning.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have this is Pat. I actually have two questions. Are we archiving the changes from month to month for this in some place? Is there any kind of auto archival going on?
No, you can do multiple revisions. So you can change, keep each one of your revisions that you make to your forecast, but it doesn't archive it month by month.
Okay, so let me ask this question in another scenario. Do you see, from a practical standpoint, who's going to be doing this? The lead operations person, the financial accounting person? You don't see this as being the same thing as a job forecast, do you? Or am I misunderstanding what you just showed?
Well, that's one of the things that I'm struggling with in terms of the reports. Like, who are we targeting? Who is going to use it?
So,
and that's going to change the types of reports that we need too.
Yeah.
So here's the reason I'm asking that question, and I'm sure everybody in the room probably has experienced this. Right now, one of the biggest issues that we run across, regardless of who the customer is and what software they have, because project forecasting or job forecasting is so all over the place, everybody's still using Excel, even if they've got a tool. I mean, now our old Spectrum users had the ability to go into the project managers could actually go into their jobs, and at the cost code level, they could enter percent complete to forecast their job. They could enter cost to complete to forecast the job, or they could enter cost at completion to forecast the job. Is this a different forecasting that we're talking about? Is this more about overall budgeting for an architect, an engineer, and a project person? Or is this, I know we're doing it in the context of ACE, so I'm kind of confused about how this tool would be used and who would do it. So forgive me if I'm a dummy, but I just don't get it at this point.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that, to be honest.
Hey, Pat, this is Kurt. So if like we've run across a couple of companies, I should say, that also have like an engineering arm or something like that. And
Wow.
This would be very applicable in their case where they want to kind of forecast out their expenditures over the, course of the project. That's where I would see it useful. If we're talking regular GC, something like that, I mean, if they want to go through the effort to kind of have those forecasted budget numbers by month over the across the project, that could be helpful to them. It all depends on.
I totally get what you're saying from the A&E side of the house. That's where I saw this as being, really strong, because most systems that we used to work with and what we encounter don't do this very well.
No, not at all.
But I was getting confused with where the overlap would be between project accounting and construction job costing and forecasting in that world.
Hey Pat, this is Glenn. The other place I think you could see this used is in the developer's office.
Mm-hmm.
They have long-term projects that are multi-years, and they want to put out the expenses and the potential revenue piece, right? So they have draws, or they're having funding coming in, and over 3 years you may find some value in spreading it out. But I think Kurt's right on the GC world. they're going to put percent completes or cost to complete more just in the project.
Yeah.
From a lump sum.
I agree. Good. Okay, cool. Well, I'm not too far off. I was just thinking about it directly from a construction's, because of this group is construction group, but we've got a big client, and I think you do too now, Kurt, with the same consulting company that's an AEC firm.
Mm-hmm.
They do about $300 million in A&E, and they do $200 million in GC work. So trying to keep them separate, that's where it sort of really makes us shine compared to what the competition appears to be.
Would agree. I think a lot of it comes down to the reporting. If you can do some cool reports with it, you might have, a DC or somebody look at it going, yeah, it's worth the effort just to give us some of this kind of reporting that looks out there, and then compare against your actual, percent completes and so forth. Here's what we projected. Here's what we've done. But again, it comes down to they want to do the effort. You make the effort to do that. So.
Well, and the one thing that if we are going to do that, where we're going to forecast for construction on a monthly basis, the reason I was asking the archive question is because, if it takes a long time for somebody to send all this information out to Excel, aggregate it into a spreadsheet, give it to the project managers, let them do the work, bring it back in, aggregate it, then bring it back into their accounting system. If we don't know the last time that billing was completed, and we can't show sort of an archival of, what's the difference between, well, how come you were 28% complete last month and now you're telling me you're 18%?
Mm-hmm.
If we don't store that information, then we can't, they can't hold the feet to the fire with the project management team. So that's why I was kind of asking that, that question around how are we archiving or keeping up with this information? I assume we could run a report and just store it out to the document management system, but if we rely on somebody to do that manually, that's probably not going to happen, and then you're going to lose it. So maybe that's a feature request. Is that something we should do for forecasting on the construction side?
Yeah. Are we talking about two different things, though? This forecast that Nancy just went through, to me, would this not be pretty helpful if it was, we wanted to talk about cash flow forecasting?
Yes.
Because I think that's traditionally something that's been pretty weak, with the products we're used to. But so that's one thing. On the other side of the coin, as far as we're percent complete, that I agree with you, Pat. That should be something that's stored in the system. We can review we can, at any point in time, let's look at the history of our, percent complete updates and what's happening. And you can ask those questions, how come this is changing in this, fashion, right?
Agreed.
Important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is all great feedback. I appreciate your guys' input. As you continue to use this, and as you get a little bit more comfortable with the forecasting tool, please provide us your feedback, right? This is how we're going to make the product better, add additional tools, add additional functionality around forecasting and budgeting. So yeah, really, really appreciate your input there, guys. And I'll gather that, and this is also being recorded. It'll be up on the Teams office hours site here shortly today, so you'll have a chance to go back and listen to it. But also, Angela will have it, and Joel on the product side to take into account as well. Any other questions?
This is Brad. Again, we're kind of new to the construction group from that standpoint. Been doing Acumatica for 4 or 5 years now. And there's just some things that I'm trying to understand if there's still gaps that are trying to be filled, or where you're at in the overall process. ProS looks like a great estimating program from that standpoint, bringing over the cost, but looks like they forgot the revenue, or is the demo that I saw just not complete?
Did you see a recording, Brad, that you're talking to on that, or?
Yeah, hey, they haven't done the revenue piece of it yet, so they're just bringing over cost budget, and they're not,
Okay.
they haven't brought over commitments either yet. But I think that's something ProEst has talked about. They're just waiting to get feedback from customers and partners. That's what.
Okay, and then also on the Procore integration, one of the things that I was hoping to see within the recorded demos and stuff like that was the ability to update % complete from the field. And I didn't see that within the demo, or is that just a feature that they didn't demo, or that's a future feature that will be coming down the pike?
So doing that from the Procore side, you're saying, Brad?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so that's not currently part of the integration for phase one. The plan, just like Glenn mentioned on the ProEst side with Procore, is to get phase one out into the field, gather feedback, and then figure out steps for phase 2, 3, and beyond.
Okay. And then some of the other integrations effectively that we've looked at on the payroll side, you know, they've got a great feed for the cost side, you know, into the general ledger if necessary. But when you get into time and material type sections of the bid, how are people doing that? Because really you need to feed that in through the time activity. And then the other thing with the time activity is if you use the cards, then effectively you have to do those sequentially. So if you got an employee that works, you know, 1 week and then doesn't work for 2 weeks, and then works, it's kind of clunky from that standpoint. So I just kind of want to understand what you guys' strategy is to complete that, i.e. cost versus, you know, time that needs to be billed.
Okay, so I don't have the answer to that question currently. I don't know. I've taken some notes on your question, of course, and I can get with Denise on that to talk about where we are on the payroll side with ISV partners as well as the internal payroll that we're working on.
Right, and I've actually worked with Workforce Go in the past and have a full project integration that's actually up and running, and I'm working with them to design the actual construction interface. But it seems like there's some gaps in functionality that needs to be closed, and I'm trying to work with them to help close that, but not exactly sure, you know, there's some limitations on either way we go. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah. And we're going to have Workforce Go on our June webinar, June 26th, where they'll be presenting the integration to the Acumatica Construction Edition. So I know Denise has been working with them. It sounds like you are as well. So have you connected with Denise at all, Brad, on the payroll side?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I'm on the line.
Hey.
I've been working with Bill Harris.
Hey, Denise.
Workforce Go.
Oh, perfect. So if you do, I have been working with Workforce Go. I sent over quite the list to them about the construction industry and the needs, and been working directly with Tanya. So if there's something specific, or if you want to talk about it, just feel free to. We can connect. It's easy. Denise.johnson@acumatica.com, and we can talk and go through it. But yeah, we're looking forward to the June webinar. To show and showcase the construction pieces I know they've been working on.
Yep. And I just got a bunch of design specs that they're asking for my input on. So I will basically review those, and I don't know if they provided those to you too, Denise, or not.
They haven't. Is that Tanya, or is that somebody else that's working with them?
I got those directly from Bill Harris.
Okay. Well, we can talk and take it offline, and we can go from there. But yes,
Absolutely.
if they need assistance, I'd be glad to.
The other question I have is unit billing. Is there, i.e., a workaround, or is there a game plan to enable unit type billing?
So I know that's an item that's on our roadmap. I don't have a date or a time on that from a release perspective.
Okay.
I believe there's been a couple of companies that have done some workarounds. Kurt, were you guys able to do something there on the heavy highway?
Yeah, we haven't done anything yet, Mike.
Okay.
certainly of interest because we just have a few folks with that need in
Sure.
in the funnel, if you will.
Okay.
But it is on the horizon.
It is on the horizon. Yes. Just don't have any timing from on that front.
A workaround. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Brad. Does anybody else have any additional questions, comments? All right. Then that's going to be a wrap for this week's office hours meeting. Really appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you. We will be posting this on the Teams site, so you'll have the recording up there shortly. Thanks, everybody.
I just, before everybody jumps off, just want to ask, is there any topics on the top of anybody's list that they would like to discuss while we're all together, or potentially for another office hours meeting?
This is Henry Lupus. The past couple of opportunities I've been working on seem to an interesting topic or feature they're looking for is something, I guess it's called business events, automating notifications and tasks and what's have you. And in the Sage world, we have a My Assistant product, which I think that's what business events are. So I wouldn't mind learning more about that at some future time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Henry.
Yeah, this is Pat. I'm interested in, I saw a feature I'd never seen before, something that we call scenarios. I don't know if that's aligned with what business events are, but Nancy, if there's anything you all can bring to the table about what value scenarios might
Is that
enable for us in construction.
Is that import scenarios?
No, we actually have a feature called scenarios. I don't think they're limited to import. I think they're like overarching workflows from what I can tell from what I've read. But I don't know if that's true or not. I may have just misunderstood what it's called or how it's defined. But do you know what I'm talking about, Nancy or Mike?
I am not familiar with scenarios outside of import-export, but let me...
Could be assignment and approval maps.
Hi, it's Kristen here. I've actually looked at that a little bit, not extensively, but a little bit. And what it appears to me to be is a way to create like a workflow task list. And where it seemed like it might be relevant is around sort of month-end closing steps on the accounting side, something like that, where you can predefine that list of tasks that people actually need to perform.
Yes, this is Brad. We use that extensively for month-end checklists, so you can actually set up various different tasks for a client through a month-end process, assign that work out to various different individuals, and it actually allows them to complete that task and flag that complete. So it gives a CFO or a controller full control of making sure everything's done for the month before they close the books. So that's what we've extensively used that for.
Well, that sounds like that'd really be great. I mean, there's a lot of tasks that go around starting up a new job and all the job checklists and all the things that worry them that if something falls through the cracks. Do you see that? Is it limited to just the financial side, or is it
No, they're actually, it's just basically gives you the ability to create a list or a checklist of what I call tasks that need to be completed, and you assign those to the various different individuals or a work group, and then effectively they have to complete that task, and they check that off, and then it basically gives whoever's looking at that the ability to see what hasn't been done yet.
That's great. That sounds like some really good information to be on dashboard widgets, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing I would ask for is maybe a little bit more. Mike, by the way, you did a really good job on that integration to Procore. Thank you for doing that.
You got it.
I didn't mean to slight you at the beginning of the conversation.
That's okay.
But,
no worries at all.
The other thing that maybe we could focus a little more attention on, maybe on the next topic, Christina, is we've seen the smart sheet, how smart sheet can be used. It would really be cool to see how smart sheet could be used maybe in a more live environment with jobs in Acumatica. And then, their dashboarding, because I'm sure everybody on this call, at least every other meeting they have with somebody asks about resource planning and scheduling. Mm-hmm. And, I'd love to see some more work around that. Maybe we could get Smartsheet to help us, and come up with that. They've got a bunch of literature on their website about it, but there's nothing we can really show other than a conceptual demo, of Smartsheet with Acumatica. So that would be interesting to me. And it's probably something, if we had a really slick answer, that it could be sort of our technology stack that we partners would want to offer along with ProS, Procore, thinking about Smartsheet integration, all that, and then really getting into the BI tools on the back end with Power BI and Tableau, and how we could have some Power BI widgets on our dashboards. All of us can do it, but we're also busy trying to close deals. It's hard to build, data out that we can actually demo. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to show, the data moving back and forth.
Yeah,
like what
those are great points, Pat. And I'm actually in conversations with Smartsheet, ProS, and some of our other ISVs to create the same kind of demo integration video that I did for Procore. So more to come on that for sure. But yeah, we're working on all those fronts.
Yeah,
right.
And just a little feedback on the Power BI. Mike and I worked on that earlier this week and made some pretty significant headway for that. The idea there is, to your point, Pat, we want you focusing on what you do best. And we are working on how to leverage the Power BI tool in all of its capacities, be it embedding a view into Acumatica or showing how it goes back and forth. So we, like I said, we made pretty significant headway there. More to come there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This Kurt again. One comment, I think what Pat's getting at is it would be very helpful if those tools were integrated and part of the demo. I think that while demo videos are fine, it isn't really what we're looking for with the customer. It's, if I'm going to demo it and talk about it, it's something essential. I want to be able to touch it and feel it and let customers interact, in the course of a demo, versus, hey, let's go watch this video. I think that's, I think it'd be very helpful if there's some way to coordinate, Power BI, Smartsheet, these other integrations we speak to, and make them real and demonstrable items.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, I agree with Kurt. I think we can use the static videos to generate questions from our customers that then we can specifically address at an interactive demo. But instead of showing them 4 hours of accounting,
right,
we can focus on stuff that enhances their decision making and makes them proactive, which is what they ought to be buying now.
Yes.
Right?
Agreed.
Definitely.
Agreed. Great feedback.
Anything else?
All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time today. Everyone have a great rest of their week, and we'll be talking to everybody soon. Thanks again.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Great. Thanks everybody.
Thanks everybody.